Well, good afternoon, Gayla. It's very good to see you today. How are you doing?
I'm pretty well, thanks.
This is Gayla Ty, and she's, of course, a member of Redeemer, been a member of Redeemer for 27 years. And you may not know, but Gayla is the one who picks most of the hymns that we sing each week. And so we're very appreciative of her for that. And she's also on our worship and music ministry team. Gayla is going to share her faith testimony. And Gayla, maybe you could start out by just sharing a little bit about what some early influences on your faith life have been.
I'd be glad to. Um, I was born and raised in Clarinda, Iowa, and it's southwest Iowa, close to Omaha. And for those of you musicians out there, or music lovers, I should say, it is the home of Glenn Miller. And we are very proud of that fact. Um, I grew up in the country. I'm a country girl and had a wonderful experience in the country. My dad was a farmer and my mother was a housewife. And I just loved life on the farm. I have a brother and we had to make our own fun because we didn't have hardly any neighbor kids that could play with us. So we spent a lot of time outside and exploring, and it was just a great time. My mom's parents belonged to St. John's Lutheran Missouri Synod. Now, this church, the physical church, was huge. It is very large. It's probably the largest church in Clarinda. And as a child, I thought that this church was massive. I mean, in my mind, it was just the biggest building that I'd ever been to. So on a Christmas Eve program, when you're going down that long aisle, I thought it would never end. But at the end of that long aisle were those two ushers that handed out the bag of candy, that wonderful bag of candy that had those orange squishy pieces with the sugar on it, and that rocks candy, hard candy with the swirls, and the peanuts and the oranges and the apples. I mean, that I could go on and on about how that, but my mom was baptized in that church. And of course, it was common back, and I didn't know this, but you took the name, the baptized took the names for their middle name from relatives that they had. So my mother's two aunts were Eleanor and Emma. And so she was Marcella, Eleanor, Emma, Stevie. Okay. So my aunts' names were Myrtle, Lucille, Selma. Okay. So I could have been Gayla, Myrtle, Lucille, Selma, Lines. So lucky for me, my parents settled on Gayla and Lines. So I kind of prefer that one. Um, my dad's family belonged to the Christian church. And it was, much different than the Lutheran church, but all of his family attended there. And my Aunt Grace was she was the organist, and she started me on piano and started me on organ, just a little teeny organ in her house. And I think she was probably one of the biggest influencers for me to go into music and be a church organist. They had, instead of infant baptism, they had adult baptism, young adult or adult. And this is how my dad was baptized. He was baptized in 1941, and he was at the age of 10. But what would happen is that when the person accepted Jesus Christ as their savior, then that was when they accepted Jesus. Then that was when they chose to be baptized. And the Christian church used the method of immersion. So the baptized were gently laid into this water, and then they came up. The minister said, some words, and they came up, and that was the baptism. My parents set a wonderful example for my brother and I. They lived out their faith, and so they did this by helping their neighbors. They were very humble, and they served actively in their congregation. And my dad, he volunteered to serve on a lot of committees. And my mother, bless her heart, she must have prepared food and served food for every funeral and every special occasion that was in that church. I remember it very vividly that Mom would be baking, and I'd say, well, what are you doing? And she'd say, well, there's a funeral, and I'm making a pie or whatever for the funeral. So she was one of those women, I don't want to say back in the kitchen, but that was their way of service to God. So confirmation. I was in confirmation from 6th to 8th grade. We had a release time. And what that was all the Lutheran kids, we were actually released from school, and we walked by ourselves, or as no adult, walked to the church, and then had our confirmation classes or confirmation class. And then we would walk back to the school unattended. And the Lutherans, for whatever reason, we were the only kids that got to do that. So, you wouldn't even imagine that in these times. We had a public questioning, and our class sat up in this, area, front of the church, and the minister could ask us anything, and we didn't know ahead what the minister was going to ask us. And of course, the church wasn't filled, but there were a lot of people, parents, relatives, friends. I mean, it was quite intimidating, terrifying, and I'm glad that I survived it, because it was very kind of scary. It's a miracle that I got through it. So that was kind of my earlier influences, I'd say.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. Very interesting. Very different from my experience growing up on the east side of Cleveland in the Catholic Church. Yeah,
Well, there had to have been some, commonalities, I guess.
some similarities. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you say a little bit now about what impacted or shaped your faith as you've grown into an adult faith?
Well, I would say that the impact that would be a real strong influencer of adult faith would be the accident that I had. And what happened was 11 years ago, I was at a friend's house and there was a tornado. And when the tornado, we heard the sirens go off. And so, of course, we went down in the basement, and the tornado actually did some damage to the roof. So it's like they say, you know, it feels like or sounds like a railroad track, you know, a railroad is going through your home. And so anyway, after the tornado, then there was a deluge of rain. I mean, it rained a lot. And the rain was coming underneath the door, through the door into the carpet. And there was a mattress that was leaning up against the wall, and it was taking on water. And so my friend asked me, you know, let's see if we can get that mattress upstairs so it doesn't ruin it. So we started moving the mattress upstairs. And of course, you can imagine trying to hold on. There's not really an easy place to hold on to a mattress. And it was heavy. And so my friend was at the top and I was at the bottom. And I lost my balance and I went backwards, hit the floor, hit my head, and I broke my neck, and the vertebrae pushed into the spinal cord, which left me a spinal cord injury. And I am a incomplete quadriplegic. Incomplete meaning that I didn't have my spinal cord severed. And if that would have happened, then I would have a much more serious injury. So that I was in many months in rehab, physical rehab, 2 months, many months, and at Iowa Methodist Rehab. And so anyway, what I did while I was there, I had several experiences that really affected then my faith. And one of them was kind of early on in my time there. And I want to say it was Friday night football. And I knew what was happening. I loved, you know, those football games. And I could smell the popcorn. I could see the marching band. I could see the football players, but I couldn't be there. I just wanted to break out the window and somehow, you know, fly back to Indianola, but I knew I couldn't do that. I was laying there crying because I was so sad, and literally in my mind, an angel picked me up and took me up towards heaven. And I really felt that. And at that time, it was one of the times that I felt the presence of God. I mean, I really felt that. And I knew that he was with me. And another one, and I'll be brief here, probably the last one I should say, is that there was a nurse, a flight nurse, that just appeared in my room. I didn't know her from anybody. And she said I was compelled to come in here, and I wanted to share something with you. And, you know, I thought, well, that's that's great. She said, well, the way I see it, that you should let your little light shine here while you're in this place. And I thought, the first thing I thought of was the little children's song, This Little Light of Mine, I'm going to let it shine. Don't hide it under a bushel. And so we are all given a light, and we couldn't shove, we should not shove it down. And we should live our lives so that people may see that you are a Christian, and that everything that you do in your life, every action you take, should be one that glorifies God. And so, in closing, I would hope and encourage all of us to live that way. A lot of times I fail miserably. I know that I don't do that, and I catch myself. But other times I feel like I've tried. And so, like I said, I challenge you to try to do this every day. So I want to just close with the verse that I was inspired by. It's Matthew 5:16. Let your light shine before men, that they may see your good works, which means, how you live, and glorify your Father in heaven. So I want to thank you for letting me share. Amen.
Yeah, thank you, Gayla. I really appreciate that. That's a great story. Let your little light shine. And where she came from and how she happened to come and give you sort of that way forward.
And I believe, well, I know that God sent her. I
Yeah.
had many times where I knew that it wasn't just a coincidence, that all these experiences shaped me to feel like I could go on, where a lot of times, and still, I still have feelings that it's, it's hard. So
Sure.
I have to think, that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate you taking the time to share with us and putting these thoughts together. And I know everybody else will appreciate it as much as I do. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.